My name's Tony Rowell. I'm a member of Lewes Stop the Cuts, and just to give you a little bit of context about this meeting, Lewes Stop the Cuts was a group set up after the last general election because we knew that the coalition government was going to impose a lot of cuts through its austerity programme, and we wanted to oppose them. And we had some successes on that and had a few actions on that. For example, we managed to get the local district council to rein back on its council tax benefit cuts. We persuaded a charity in Lewes to stop using workfare, people who are working for their benefits. We had a fuel poverty action demonstration and also a march through the town. But this is a really big issue that has galvanised a lot of people's interest, and so we felt it was important to have a meeting. And what we would like to do at this meeting is for Chris Smith, who people may know, he runs the travel log website, and he knows a lot about what's going on around travel around East Sussex. He's going to speak for about 10 minutes, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, and then after that we'll take contributions from the floor or questions from the floor, but we'd like you to think about how the cuts may affect you. We'd also like you to give any stories, for those of you that haven't, give stories at the end or on a slip of paper that Sue at the back has. And also to think what you might do to stop these cuts, because even though they're, people think, oh, it's going to happen, we do have the opportunity before the budget, which will be passed or presented to Cabinet in December, we have an opportunity to mobilise people to do some actions and to persuade or force the council to change its mind. There's also some, in case you don't know, there's also a consultation going on, and for those of you that haven't done that, you can do it online, but there's also some forms at the back which you can take away, and the consultation is still open till the end of, I think it's 28th of September. So you can do that as well. And finally, if anyone would like to make a donation to Lewes Stop the Cuts for booking the hall, making a meeting, preparing things, then feel free to donate anything in the box there at the back. So.
And one final point, if I've missed anybody coming in who hasn't given us their email to have information about the bus campaign, then please can you give it to us on the way out if you would like information. Thank you. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. So I'm going to hand over to Chris Smith now to talk about the actuality of the cuts.
So what's happening? From April 2015, if East Sussex County Council have their way, there will be no buses east of Lewes on the 28 or the 29 service in the evening. There will, right, you can say, but if you live in Ringmer or you live in Uckfield and you want an evening out in Brighton, particularly if you're a young person, you can forget it. As far as I can tell, there will be no bus services after 7 o'clock, even on Saturdays, as far as I can tell. Now, those buses will not have a fare rise unless Brighton and Hove buses decide to have one. But for almost every other bus in Lewes, there will be a 30% increase. Originally, the council was saying it was going to be up to 30%. Now, on their consultation, they're saying it's going to be 30%. Just to give you an idea of what that means, a return fare from here to Newhaven will cost in the region of £6.20. That is nearly twice the cost of the train. And you can see what is going to happen. However many bus services there are left, everybody who possibly can is going to avoid going on the bus because they can't afford it. Particularly significant because we know that it tends to be people with less money who use the bus. So, of course, in a couple of years' time, whatever bus services remain will not be well patronised, and so, of course, the council will want to close those down as well. And for those of you who have your pensioner's pass, and I'm very glad to have lived long enough to get one, and think it's not going to affect you, can I remind you that Nick Clegg for the Liberal Democrats has said he wants to get rid of the pensioner's bus pass. The Labour Party is saying, well, perhaps we were too generous when we gave it out to people, and the Conservatives are keeping stum because they tend to have a lot of older voters. But you may want to guess what they're going to do. So don't think just because you're over pension credit age, you're going to be okay. As you probably know by now, Lewes Suburban Services on the estates will go out to hourly. So let's hope the bus station is in better nick, because you're going to have a bit of a wait. That services to places like Piddinghoe, Kingston, Newhaven, Chailey, Newark will now be 2 hourly. So you're going to have an even longer wait in the bus station, and let's hope you like pizza. And if you live in Plumpton, Barkham, Lawton, well, you bring a tent, because services will be 2 days a week, sometimes a little bit better in the rush hours. Rush hours, by the way, are traditional working hours. You remember those days when people used to work 9 to 5? Well, according to East Sussex County Council, they still do. So if you work other hours, well, that's going to be tough. So how did we get to this? Well, in the 1980s, the Conservatives decided that they would deregulate bus operating, that anyone at all could run any bus service anywhere they liked, as long as it could make a profit. Great. And indeed, the 28 and the 29 buses during the day are run by Brighton and Hove Buses to make a profit. And indeed, these companies, and there tend to be 5 of them, all forming monopolies in the big services, are making profits so big that the Monopolies and Mergers Commission called them excessive. Brighton buses are run by Go Ahead, a big company who also run Southern trains. Their profits were said to be excessive. And Stagecoach, who run the buses in Hastings and in Eastbourne, also made, according to the Monopolies and Mergers Commission, excessive profits. But that left the other services, which up until now, the bus companies had said, well, OK, we'll subsidise them ourselves because they feed into our services, which make a profit. But now, we, through our county council, we're going to have to pay for those services. So the private companies took the profits, and we picked up the losses. The Labour government continued that arrangement, and outside of London, generally speaking, bus patronage has declined rapidly. There is an exception in Brighton where a go-ahead council and a quite enlightened bus company by national standards have managed to increase services, but we are seeing a decline elsewhere. We now come on to the coalition government, where quite significantly our Norman Baker was the bus minister for much of the time that the coalition has been in power. And remember that the key thing is how much money do councils have to subsidise these loss-making bus services? Well, the coalition radically cut the general money available to councils. And I think it's something like 60 million over 3 years is being lost from councils' general funding from central government. But they did more than this. The bus minister, Norman Baker, cut bus fuel subsidy by 20%. It's now the lowest that it's ever been. And he said, well, we're going to put other forms of subsidy in place. But these forms of subsidy were for capital projects, which will by and large make things easier for big bus companies. For example, we're going to have illuminated signs in Lewes which tell you when the buses are coming, if there were any. And actually, just to make sure that you don't get on the wrong bus, they're only going to have the Brighton and Hove bus is on them. And if you want to find out when the trading bus is coming, tough, because it won't be on there. So there's been some new funding, but there has, by and large, been, particularly in the coalition, a big cut in funding. In particular, they abolished the rural bus grant as a separate form of funding. Now, we can't change the government this year. Next year, you can all have a go. But let's have a look now at East Sussex County Council. Now, you might say, well, they're under the cosh. What can they do? They've got to make savings. Well, what have they done in terms of transport policy? They need to save about 1.8 million, or so they say. That's from the bus services. But they've just spent £56 million of our money on the Bexhill Link Road, Bexhill to Hastings Link Road. And that's on top of the money that the government has given them, and it's on top of the loan that they're apparently about to take out for a further 10 million. That's our money. So you can see where their priorities are. And what I want to say to you is we should be saying to East Sussex County Council, you need to change your priorities. Just to give you an example of some of the things that they could have done but didn't. To be fair to Norman Baker, he has instituted a number of new grants that you can apply for. East Sussex County Council applied for none of them. It says it has an environmental policy. What's more environmental than stopping more cars coming into Lewes by providing more bus services? What are they doing? The opposite. They make over £750,000 a year on profits from their parking scheme. And you might think, well, in an environmental society, what you would do is apply the money that you've made on parking to subsidising the bus services. How much of that £750,000 has gone on subsidising the bus services? None. And nor has it publicised its bus service. Just to give you an example, there was a ticket called the Lewes bus ticket. How many of you have ever used it? Or heard of it? Yeah. The Lewes Day ticket. Yeah, we've got one here. Any more? I don't. Yeah, good. 3. Yeah, good. So if you're in the know, great, it's a good value ticket. £2 all around the... Go on, you're going to tell us a bit more?
I was just say, I wouldn't have known about it if it hadn't been for one of the drivers on the south of the bus. So it'd be cheaper for you to get a Lewes bus ticket.
Yeah. Good for them. I rang up East Sussex County Council Transport and said, are you going to publicise this ticket? And they said, no. But if you look on the Travelodge website, you'll see all about it. So if I hadn't put it on the Travelodge website, you've never heard about it at all. Or if the odd driver hadn't told you about it. That's the kind of publicity that they do. So, okay, there's a bit of background. Everyone gets very resigned these days and says, oh, it's all a done deal. Is it? No, I don't think it is. We've already seen, for example, that the council has agreed to reinstate the service for Deanland Wood to get into Hailsham. I don't know if you know Deanland Wood. It's where if you're getting old, you sell your house, you buy a caravan much cheaper, and you live on the caravan site. These people are in the middle of the country and they face losing their bus service, which would only run 2 days a week. Now it's been agreed that they will get a service every day, although it will only be 2 buses rather than the ones they get at the moment. So already things are beginning to move. And I suspect that what the council thinks is, we'll just work out who shouts the loudest about their bus service, and we'll give them their service back. Well, we better make darn sure that we're the ones who shout the loudest. What happens now is that there is a consultation which the council are launching, which lasts until the 28th of September. Now, I'm a great believer that consultation often means con, and many people think that they have been consulted but not listened to. Nonetheless, I urge you to fill in the consultation document, but please don't leave it at that. Please also contact your council members, even if it's a council member who is supportive. Telling them how you're going to be affected gives them ammunition. If you're not in Lewes and your councillor is not supportive yet, then tell them you'll be watching them. Particularly important, I think, in Chailey, in parts of New Haven and so on. Do take some leaflets and tell other people, and tell them that things are happening. And do please talk about your experiences. I've been trying to encourage people, and we have been trying to encourage people to talk about their experiences by writing to the newspapers, the radio stations and so on. And that's always what we get asked for. Whenever I stick out a press release, they say, can you tell me someone who will be affected? Which is why we've asked you to fill in those forms. But there's nothing, of course, to stop you writing into the Sussex Express or any other paper like Lewes News or Viva Lewes or whatever to tell them what's happening. We also would like you to display posters in your window. We have until December. As Tony said, what we'd like to do for the rest of this meeting is, rather than just saying, well, it's a terrible thing, which I think probably most of you agree, I would like people perhaps to tell their stories about how they think they personally would be affected, and about things, to talk about things that you're prepared to do, or that we, all of us here, could do together. We have so many ideas, you know, I've given you some of them, but of course we run out, we run out a little bit of energy sometimes too. So, Tony's going to open the discussion, and I hope you all talk about those things.